Welcome to the Friendly Moms Club podcast with Jen and Karlee. We're the new mom friends you didn't know you needed.
We are creating a safe space to bring moms together, lighten the heaviness, and find joy in the everyday moments. Together, we will share our own experiences of being new moms while navigating the topics we wish more people talked about.
Join us every Monday to hear us skip the small talk and dive right into the uncomfortable.
Hello, happy Mom Day, Karlee.
Happy Mom Day, Jen. Is it a beautiful day?
It is a beautiful day.
It's a beautiful day.
But I can't sing.
I can't sing either today. I just don't have it in me. I'm just...
There's
no...
I don't think anyone's actually going to miss it, so...
But what if they do? What if they do? If you don't know what we're talking about, we always start our episodes by singing. I'm not going to do it. I'm not giving the people what they don't want.
We have had busy weeks. There's been so much going on, but we had our first event. We're calling them the Friendly Mom Nights, and we're doing it with Bellies, which is excited. We've had Sam on the podcast a few times before. If you've listened to our first podcast, we talk about our love story, Karlee and I's, and how we met at Bellies. So it's kind of fitting that now we're doing mom events at Bellies as well. Kind of full circle. It's really cool.
We've grown. And if you're looking them up, there's Belly's Community Space, which is where we go. That's where Sam has all of her events. And then there's also Belly's Inc., which is like the pregnancy postpartum product. So, and I know a lot of people have tried to find the Belly's events, and they go to the Belly's Inc. site, and they're like, I don't get it. It's just this ab wrap thing. But yeah, check out the ab wrap, and then go to Belly's Community Space. But we'll put both below.
Yes, it's the same person. It's both Sam, but...
Two things.
Belly's Community Space is, where all the information of our events will be. We did a doormat DIY, so we made some doormats, and we all were pleasantly surprised at our artistic abilities.
I know. We were good.
We are doing one in August 16th. It is a flower bouquet workshop with a local florist who's bringing vases, flowers, twine, all the things. She's going to teach you how to make a bouquet, and you get to take it home, and it's all for moms. And we kindly ask that no kids come, other than kids that are like being held, like new babies obviously are welcome. It's really nice. You just get to socialize. I don't think we even talked really about kids on Friday.
We talked about us.
Which was lovely. We talked about us.
Yeah. And we just talked about adult things, and it was great. A little bit of reality TV. Yeah. We talked about our jobs. We talked about, we didn't really even talk about being moms, which was kind of nice. It was kind of a good change up.
Talked about relationships a little bit.
Yeah, relationships. There may have been some demonstrations of a couple sex positions. That came up. A little bit of that.
And I give you one guess as to who gave the demonstration. Because it wasn't me.
It was me. But to be fair, I was showing a position that I don't do anymore, so I could still do it, though. I still had it. Yeah, if you're interested in that one on August 16th, we'll put the link for registration below. You register through the Belly's Community Space website, and then we'll also put a link if you want to sign up to be on our waiting list so that you can hear about all of the future events. So we're going to try to we're planning to do one every month at Belly's with Sam, and that'll be like a kids-free one. And then we've thought about other types of events. So make sure you're following us on Instagram at the Friendly Moms Club, and then sign up for our waiting list so you can hear everything from us.
And we just want to give a little warning that today's audio isn't the same quality as normal. We had a lot of technical difficulties.
So many technical difficulties.
I wasn't even there for the first 20 minutes of the episode because none of my technology things worked. Nothing worked. So anyways, and then I joined in halfway through the episode.
And then mine cuts out halfway through. It's all
So we apologize, but it was good, and we still wanted to share the episode. So we apologize in advance for that. It's not our best work, and we'll be back firing on all cylinders in a couple weeks in the next episode, but
you might not even notice. It's just I have a very critical ear. My sensory things really get to me, so every little thing I notice. So you might just be driving in your car and be like, this sounds totally fine and cool. I hope it does. But if you are like me and you're irritated that things don't sound the same, then I'm sorry. And next week we'll be back to regular scheduled programming. Well, not next week, the week after.
And so today's but today's episode is with Rachael Fritz, and she is parenting on Mars. We've had her on here before.
Is she actually on Mars?
What episode, Karlee? No, she's in Chicago.
Yeah.
What
episode
number was she on?
I just wrote it down. Episode 36. We did Modern Parenting in 2024. Is it trendy to be gentle? So if you didn't hear that one. Head on back.
She's great. We really love her. We've kind of built a little relationship with her. And we had her on today to talk about tantrums and those big emotions in toddlers and young kids, because
they're a lot.
It's hard.
And why they're not our fault.
So we wanted some tips and tricks. Yeah, exactly. So we think it's a very interesting, informative episode, and we hope you enjoy it.
Yeah, me too. I guess you said we. Okay. It's time for the interview. All right, here's Rachel.
Here comes Rachel.
Welcome, Rachel. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Thanks for having me. My name's Rachael Fritz. I'm a parenting expert and parenting coach with my organization, Parenting on Mars. And so what I've done is done a ton of research and learning on all things child development, attachment theory, the brain, the nervous system. And I distill that down for my clients, and I coach them to just really live authentically in their parenthood and joyfully in their parenthood through my programs.
I love that. I don't know if we asked you this the first time, but where did you get the name Parenting on Mars? I love it. It reminds me of that book, The Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. I actually hadn't read that book, but yeah.
A lot of folks to say that. So I love the origin story of the name. I have 3 kiddos, and my youngest son's name is Mars. And so
I love that.
Yes. I was thinking of names for my business and trying to think of a clever way to incorporate my kids' names, maybe one of them, maybe all of them. And it just kind of came to me as I was going to bed one night. It was like Parenting on Mars. So it has sort of a meaning of, what are we doing? Where are we? We're in this new place, this new space, this new state of being. But then for me, it's just this like little nod to him.
I love that. And what are your other kids' names?
So I have girl, boy, boy. My daughter is Penelope.
I love that.
Thank you. My middle son is Fox, and the baby is baby Mars.
Does she go by Penny or Poppy?
No, she goes by Penelope, but she's, she's in 3rd grade. She's going into 4th grade, and she's definitely exploring kind of with identity. She moved to a new school this past school year. So a lot of teachers are like, Penny. And I'm like, who? I was like,
who the hell's Penny?
Is this what you go by now? So we'll see. She's trying it out here and there.
We'll see what she picks. Speaking of, I guess she's not a toddler anymore. She's a child, but I was going to say they have big emotions. They have their own thoughts. We don't really understand their brains, but you do. Our goal for today is we want to learn toddler brains, toddler big emotions, toddler tantrums, so that we can remind ourselves that we're not messing them up. Like, we're not causing this. This is just their brains. And then we can all be more kind and gentle with ourselves. So why don't you just start us off by telling us a little bit about toddler tantrums, big emotions. Where do they come from? Like, what are they? Where do they come from?
Oh, the tantrum, right? So tantrums are essentially a stress response, right?
Okay.
So when our children are born, they are born with all of the emotions and all of the things, all of the feelings, right? And not a way to really express them. So when we have a newborn, when we have babies, and we experience crying or screaming, what do? Like, we say, what's wrong? What's going on here, right? We're looking underneath, like, something's going on to cause this crying, this screaming. And then as they age, at some point, we do this shift where instead of asking the why, we start to look at the behavior as the thing to focus on. What I encourage parents to do, and what I think we can all do, is like hold on to that curiosity longer. I mean, hold on to it forever, right? Is how we create a secure attachment and lifelong foundation of a healthy relationship. But curiosity is the key. And so when our children are having a tantrum, it's because they have these big feelings within them that they don't know how to express. They don't know how to regulate. And it comes out in this, beautiful display of emotion. And so that discomfort is one thing we want to address. So, we can say, okay, tantrums are the result of something going on inside. I can get curious about that. I can understand that. But then it stops to get kind of helpful after that, right? We're not like it's then what? So then what do we do? And I really like to anchor myself in kind of these two questions. What's the need that's not being met, or what's the skill that my child hasn't learned yet? If we can kind of focus in on those two things, addressing a tantrum becomes a little less confusing, a little less emotional, if you will, because then we're not so much focused on, again, the behavior of the tantrum, but we're focusing on how do I teach and lead my child in either meeting their needs, right? I'm hungry, I'm tired, I'm, fill in the blank, I need connection, whatever it might be, or an unlearned skill. I have a really hard time waiting, and we need to build up that capacity to wait, right? Like we had to build up a capacity to deal with discomfort.
You've mentioned discomfort a few times. Do you mean discomfort for the toddler, or discomfort for us, or discomfort for everybody else watching the tantrum? Because I am uncomfortable when my little guy has big emotions, but he's obviously uncomfortable because that's what he's expressing. So do you kind of mean for everybody, or are you specific to one person here?
The tantrums happen because the child is experiencing discomfort, right? But what you name is completely in the room too, right? Like our own discomfort is present there. We don't know what the discomfort of others is, right? We can maybe create that story in our mind. That happens a lot too, where we're like, oh God, this is a scene. I'm really causing other people to be interrupted, or fill in the blank, whatever stories we create in our head about that. But there's discomfort all around. And as much as I really wish I had secret to how do we maintain a level of, centeredness and calmness ourselves during a tantrum, I wish I had the one thing that could apply to everyone.
The easy answer.
I'd be a billionaire, but I don't. The reason for that is because we all come to these situations, we all come to these stressful moments with our own history, with wiring of our own nervous system, and what it was like to experience discomfort when we were a child, what it was like when we were upset, how our caregivers responded to us. Even outside of that, what would happen if we had a tantrum ourselves when we were children? Ideas around feelings of judgment, feelings of having to, maybe appear a certain way as a parent, or have our children appear a certain way in public or around family members. There's so much at play, and that takes work. Essentially, that's what I coach around, right? Like that, getting really into that history, freeing us from some of those things,
those beliefs.
My job.
You're right when you say what happened when we had tantrums as kids, because I know that I was a very emotional kid. Now I know as an adult I have ADHD. I've been diagnosed now that a lot of that was sensory overload for me, but I was a very explosive child, and it was not acceptable in my household, as it was in so many households growing up, right? Our parents didn't know how to approach them. They didn't know why they were happening. So the easiest way for them was to tell us to stop complaining and stop being so sensitive, no shame to them. They did the best with what they could, with what they knew. But when my kid is having tantrums, now I feel I have to go the opposite and be so accepting of it. But sometimes I just want to be oh, stop, So you really hit it there when you said our own experience of having tantrums as kids. And if we have those memories, that really does come into play when our kids are having big emotions. And then on top of that too, there's we have an image that we're trying to portray. And when our kid is exploding in public or with certain people, we get that sense of, okay, are they judging me? I feel like a bad mom. But I think one thing that we want to really get across today is that it is so developmentally normal for these big emotions. And it's not because we're bad parents. And it's not because we're bad moms. So can you speak a little bit more about that, about why toddlers specifically have these big emotions?
It's their brain development, right? So the brain develops from the bottom up. And so when they're in sort of that middle brain state, which is where emotions and the fight, flight response gets activated.
Mm-hmm.
There are other stress responses too. There's freeze, there's fawn. That's the part of the brain that's being activated. And the part of the brain that regulates those things, right? We love to talk about regulation, co-regulation. The part of the brain that regulates those things is the prefrontal cortex. And so essentially it is still developing. It's just not available in those stressful periods, even for us as adults. Like, it goes offline, right? It flips. It is not accessible in that moment. And so when we try to use reason with our tantruming toddler, it's not going to work, right? Like, it's going to probably create just more frustration in ourselves because we're trying to reason with someone who doesn't have a reasoning center of their brain online or even developed, right? Like, we know that the prefrontal cortex fully develops in the mid-20s. So what we're doing then when our child is in that state is we're lending them, it's almost like we're lending them our prefrontal cortex, right? Like, we're sharing regulation. That's what co-regulation is. It's sharing our nervous system with them. It's sharing the fact that, like, we can see beyond this moment. We know that this is going to be okay. Our child who is in a place of, I'm not safe, something's wrong, I need to scream or cry or, whatever it might be, we're there in our presence, sometimes our words, if that helps your child, but we're there in our presence and our body language, in our emotional tone to communicate, it is going to be okay. I got you. And I can ride this out with you, right? We're going to get through this. I'm here for you, buddy. When we show up in that energy, what that does is that helps build their prefrontal cortex, right? That helps nourish that growth in their brain of, here's how I know here's practice rather in experiencing this emotion and getting through it and knowing that it's going to be okay on the other side, right? We're helping them to grow tolerance of it. We can't explain it away. We can't, use reasoning. We have to really sit in it and show them how we interpret and how we get through that emotion.
So when we talk about toddler tantrums, what are your tips for how to approach them? And, like, how do you figure out what works for your kid? Because what if they want a big hug or they want those words of affirmation? How do we figure out is it just like trial and error and see what happens?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
It kind of is, right? One of the things that a lot of my clients will ask me, they'll say, well, do you need to meet my child? Do they need to come to these sessions? I say, well, no, because you know your child, right? Like, you have the answer.
Yeah.
And so my job is to build you up from within so that you can better access those answers because right?
Got it.
And so that's why a lot of this kind of, I don't know, in my mind, I've been sort of thinking about it as like mass-produced parenting advice, like parenting advice for the masses, where it's, here's this one phrase that's going to stop a tantrum in its tracks. Here's how you respond to this. And this is why. I'm kind of like, well, not really, right?
You're saying like it could work, but it doesn't work with every kid or every time.
Absolutely. I think a lot of the advice out there are pretty good jumping off points, right? So you're going to communicate empathy. Right? A lot of times we'll hear scripts or words that we need to say, I believe you, or naming their emotion. You're feeling sad. You're feeling, whatever it might be. And you might have a kid that doesn't want to hear any words, right? You might have a child who doesn't want to be told how they feel or doesn't want the playback of what happened, like, spoken to them because it elicits like even bigger emotions or whatever it might be. You do have to consider your child in this. I'll give you an example. So yesterday I took my 3 kids to see Inside Out 2, which is amazing, by the way, if you haven't seen it. And so my kids are 9, 6, and 3. And I'm like, I don't know if the 3-year-old's it's their first time in a movie theater, if he's going to be able to hang. And he was getting pretty antsy by the very end. And I knew why, right? Like, the curiosity was already there. Like, I know what his needs were. He was fatigued. It was that time of the day, all the things. Okay. And we're getting out and I'm holding him and he's crying he's like a swatter, right? Like he gets upset and then he just will like hit, right? He'll just like, ah. I do this thing, which is really helpful. And I do offer it as here's something folks could try. But what I'll do is if he does kind of swing a hand, I'll take his hands and I'll kind of place it back on his body. And I'll say, hands to yourself, right? Hands to yourself, right? I'm not going to let myself get hit or injured by my tantruming child. What he said yesterday, he was like, I don't want you to say that. You always say hands to yourself. And I was like, okay, all right. There's some feedback there. I'm like, I hear you. You don't want words. I still contained his hands and like gently placed them back on his body. And he's telling me he needs something else. I'll adjust course, right? And I'm going to kind of use that with a little more discernment next time we were in a situation like that, because he communicated it to me. So listen to your kids, see what they're telling you. Oftentimes they'll go away, leave me alone. I know that sometimes there can be this like, well, I'm not supposed to leave. I have to stay there. Well, I don't know. Do they actually need space? There's a lot of times where I'll say, I will give you some space. I am right here. I'm going to check in in 2 minutes, right? It's the emotional presence that you bring to it. It's the energy that you bring to it, not you have to follow these steps when a tantrum happens. And then it changes based on your kid, right?
Yeah. So it's a little bit more about being present with them than actually having, okay, they're going to melt down and I'm going to sit next to them and I'm going to say this phrase and then I'm going to rub their back. Like it's so much more almost like feeling it with them. And then kind of, if you can feel it with them or even understand what they're feeling, and then you can kind of regulate together, like you were saying.
Yeah. It's like surfing. Like you're like catching the waves, right? And you're like, okay, like this one, I'm going to do something different here. I'm going to, they're not all the same. So you really have to surf through that.
I find it hard because as you're talking about all this, I'm like, man, it is so much work on the parents. And I think so many parents think it's my kid's problem. It's them that's the problem. I think it's easy to put all the work onto our kids. Like they have to figure this out. Like they're going to learn this. It's all going to get better. It's very kid focused. And I think that we almost have to change that mindset shift.
A lot of mind shit with the tantrum.
Yeah, there's a lot of mind shit. There's all mind shit.
Don't edit it out. It's appropriate.
Yeah, that's staying in here. Mind shit.
Mindset shift about, okay, what do I need to do? And I need to learn how to do this. And I think that it brings up the same thing of if we've never learned how to regulate our emotions, we're never going to be able to regulate our kids' emotions and help them learn. So many things of parenting comes back to how we were raised. How have we done the last 10 years? Like, in our 20s and 30s, what have we learned? Can we regulate our own emotions? And I think a lot of adults still can't regulate them very well.
No.
So then you start having kids and you're like, oh yeah, now they're trying to regulate emotions and you're supposed to co-regulate, and it's just so overwhelming and it's exhausting. And then they're screaming and you're like, I don't know. And there's times that I just start crying because I'm like, yeah,
that's
this
okay.
sucks. And
you're
then
feeling
we're
it
just
with
crying
them
together.
Yeah.
We're riding the wave. We're crying together. But I think it's just that shift of it's not all on your kids. It's not your kid is messed up or your kid is a terrible kid. It's like normalizing, okay, these are normal emotions for them to have. Like, how did I figure it out? How can I be with them and help them through it together? And what do I need to do to learn and get better to then help them? And it's just like that subtle shift of taking all of the blame and pressure on your child, I feel like.
I love that, Jen. And even just the being in a place to say, I don't know, but we're safe together. I don't know the answer here. I'm going to give you as much as I can. I'm going to be here. And just really, it's almost
let's figure it out together.
Yeah. This soul to soul, being to being type of relationship, right? I think when we're in tantrum mode, yes, it's our job as leaders and parents to co-regulate and to, teach our kids and guide them through this and be their safety net in those moments. And that can be really hard. Not painting that as that's the easy step, but that's hard. And that takes work. But it's almost like the what do I do? What are the answers? It's not a brain, as much as it's happening in our kids' brain, it's not a brain thing, right? It's like a heart thing that's happening there. So we kind of got to get out of our heads, I think, a little bit when we're in these moments and get more into the feeling, relationship piece of it. And then when it passes, let's use our brains then, right? Let's go back. Let's think about what led to this. What were some of the signs? How could we build our kids up for more tolerance of these things in the future? You know, what can we do differently before? What can we do now to talk about what happened? And then we can do all that work. But in the moment, just feel and just be, right?
That's good advice. It's everybody says there's a, like you said on the internet, everyone's, this is what you have to say. This is what you have to do. But it's so specific and it depends on the situation and where you are and like your capacity and their capacity. And I love that advice to just be there and feel it. And then together you'll just kind of work through it. And I like that. That's actually like, that, Jen, that's what you're doing right now. Like you're feeling it with them. We also have to shift our mindset. We have our mind shit. We need to shift it from not viewing a successful resolution of the tantrum as it like ending right away. Like maybe we need to shift that like the tantrum can happen and we can actually ride that whole wave. And maybe the tantrum is 5 minutes in the middle of Walmart, but that doesn't mean it was like in air quotes a failure. Maybe that was still a success because they had you there. You were able to, whatever strategy or tool you used. And then after that, they have learned, okay, sometimes I get angry and my mommy, my daddy, my grandma, my grandpa, whoever is there, we feel it together and maybe you do repair after. Next time, let's say I'm getting really angry right now. I'm going to stomp my feet and get that energy out, you know? So maybe the success isn't just the tantrum ending right away. Because I know for myself as a kid, when I was told to just like be quiet, I would just stop it, but I still felt the emotions. I just kept them all to myself. And now as an adult, I'm like, crumbling, you know? Yeah. I wish I actually experienced them. That would have been a success.
Yeah. We can't control our kids. We can't, people cannot
we can try.
Controlled. We can try, but you know, if you
doesn't work.
No. And if you really think about, you know, the idea of control and the idea of power over another person, what are the tools or what are the things that then we need to lean on? Fear, right? Punishment, coercion, bribing, nothing that builds relationship, nothing that's advantageous for brain development, right? And for that prefrontal cortex development. And so, you know, this idea of control is something that, and I don't know if many folks would phrase it as that now. We're a little bit more, you know, we're kind of getting more with it, I think, as
a little bit more
as
woke
a culture. I think we need to ask ourselves when we do use some of these tactics, is what we're reaching for, that is that control.
For sure.
And that's just not effective. And I know we're talking about toddlers, but I hate to say it, tantrums don't stop, right? They might look different. They might sound different. I think that that's just even more reason why we need to just respond to our individual child, because, you know, a toddler, you can scoop up and carry out of Walmart, right? Or you can say, I'm putting you in the stroller and you can whatever. You can't do that to an 8-year-old. Like you can't do that to a 9-year-old, right?
Can't do that to a 30-year-old.
Right. Exactly.
It's like I still have I don't have toddlers. I have tantrums. They just show up very differently than they did when I was a toddler.
Yeah.
I've heard that parents will lean on this idea that, well, I can just physically control my child. I have that physical control over them.
Right.
So shit hits the fan, they just pick them up and carry them out of the park. Well, as they get older, that gets more and more difficult. And so if you've never worked on that emotional part of, I'm with you, I'm here for you, what can we do to help these emotions? If you've never worked on that with your child, then there's going to be a point that you can't pick them up, or you're pregnant again, or, you know, there's other factors that you can't do the physical controlling that you've been kind of leaning on. And I just find that I think everyone wants the easy answer. And unfortunately, the easy answer is only going to push the shitstorm further down in their age. Like, how do I say this? Do you know what I mean? You're just like, delaying
You're
the
procrastinating
inevitable. Like,
the shitstorm. Yeah.
You have to go through it with them and really feel it and work through it. And as easy as it is to just say, okay, fine, I'm going to take away your toys, I'm going to take away this, like all of those control pieces, like you mentioned, it doesn't actually teach them anything. And that's our goal as parents, right? We want to be there for our kids and teach them so that they can have a successful life and learn how to have these emotions. And I posted about it this week because I talked to my therapist about it, this idea of perfectionism as a parent. And I was like, well, if I'm not perfect, and she's, well, what's wrong? What would happen? What's the worst thing if you screwed up? And I'm like, well, I'm going to screw up my kids emotionally. And she's, but are you really? Because I think that if you mess something up and you work to repair it with your child, she's like, your child's actually going to learn way more than if you were the perfect parent and you never apologized to them. You never had to repair anything with them. She's like, that child's never going to learn then how to apologize, that they can have a disagreement with someone that doesn't have to be a fight and that they can come to a conclusion and move forward with it in a good relationship. And she's like, if you've never screwed up as a parent, that means your child has never witnessed that and they've never learned it. So it's okay to not be perfect. And we need to get rid of this idea that we never teach them these things and we never show them that it's okay to have emotions, because they're going to have these emotions. So if they never see us then they're going to think it's wrong to be upset, even though we're upset all the time, but we're hiding it from our kids. And anyways, it really shifted in my mind. I was like, okay, it's okay if I don't have it all together. And that took pressure off of me. Like, it was just her saying those words. I was like, I don't have to be perfect because I'm going to teach my kid these things and I'm going to show them that it's okay. And I want them to be able to deal with emotions as they grow up, because they're going to come and they are hard. And if you don't deal with it till you're in your 30s, 40s, like so many adults now who are trying to do it, it's a lot of work. And if you can start younger and really work through them, I just think you are leading your kids to have a more successful and more just fulfilling life where they can actually feel the range of emotions and be in them. And just because there's so many beautiful emotions out there, you don't want them to just shut them all down, because then can they never love? Then will they never like really feel all of those good emotions too if you just tell them don't feel anything? Anyways, I'm kind of going down a path here, but
no, I love it. No, I love that. And I think too, not only is it okay not to be perfect, like it's preferred.
Yeah.
Right? Like that perfectionism. I mean, perfectionism and people pleasing is essentially a stress response. Yeah. Right? And so that's the fawn. That's the I'm safe when I make other people happy, or I am safe when I'm doing everything right. And so, then we go kind of through the work of like, where does that come from? And what's the generational patterns there and all that, right? And then what do you want to, move forward in your lineage, right? Not this idea of perfectionism. And then I think too, the other point you made about how you have that power, you didn't use the word power, but you're physically able to pick up your kids when they're little. We have inherent power over our kids, right? We are the adults. We are bigger. We are stronger. We have a more developed brain. We are not better than our children. We are not more worthy than our children, right? We are soulfully equals with them. But it's our job to guide and lead and teach and all of the things. But it's sort of this, like, when you have that inherent power, what do you do with it? Right? Like, how do you, again, build yourself up from within so that you're not leaning on this tool of power to parent, right? And so that takes a lot of the work too. And
I love that.
I was a preschool teacher, and one of the things that I would always remind myself in the classroom is, if I escalate things right now, there's nowhere to go but up, right? So like when we escalate, when we're parenting in this space of, I said it once, if you don't do it again, then you're losing this privilege, or I'm going to count to 3. If you don't do it, this is gone. If you don't leave the park right now, I'm carrying you, and then there's no dessert tonight. If you continue to lean on those types of tools, it's just gonna get bigger and bigger and bigger. Yeah. And you're gonna have to think of more things, and it's exhausting. And the pushback is gonna look different too. So let's just rewire it now. Shift that now.
So how do we differentiate between controlling and setting boundaries? Because I know with my toddler, boundaries, like he needs them. And something he's been doing lately is going on his little toddler tower at the kitchen counter. And he's been like bumping it because he thinks it's funny and it's like almost falling over. So I've had to set the boundary that like, if you do that, I have to move it and take it away because it's a safety issue. But it's not me trying to control him. Like if you don't stop crying, I'm going to take it away. Like that's different, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. Because in my head, I'm like, but I take things away, but it's a safe, it's not because of his behavior. Well, it is, you know what I mean?
Of course. Yeah. So there's a value you have there. That's safety, right? So our boundaries uphold our values, right? So you have this value of safety or, whatever it might be. And all of our values are different. There are no bad ones, but then you operate from that place. There's a natural consequence, right? It's imposed, right? It's not a punishment. It's not a threat. My job is to keep you safe. I have to take this away. In my household, like there's always another chance, right?
Yeah.
This isn't I'm taking this away for a week. This isn't it's going in the garbage. This isn't we're never going to get to do this game again because every time we do this game, you do X, Y, Z. There's none of that energy. Yeah. There's this is so hard right now. I know I want to play too. Let's get ourselves in the place where we can do X, Y, Z and we'll try again. That's it. It's a different energy, right?
I really like that reframe because I often get really uncomfortable when I hear that, I don't even know what to call it, like that punishment, that like taking privileges away, like if you do this, then you're never going to do that. And it's like, I don't know, do they even understand that? And where does that even come from? Is it like we're so worried about people knowing our kids have emotions, so we do absolutely everything so nobody can ever see that they have emotions? Like, I know I felt uncomfortable taking Henry into public before when he's having big emotions, but like why he's allowed to have big emotions? He's a baby. Well, he's a toddler now, but like why can't he express his emotions and why can't I validate those instead of threatening him to shut him up faster? Anyway, it's just a thought.
Yeah. Same with airplanes. You do hear lovely stories though about someone in the seat over held your baby for you and they got them this and like you do hear some very good stories about people coming together to help and not judging you. I am scared to fly because of the fear of people judging me, which is so messed up that I'm too scared to take my kids to visit their family because I'm scared of people judging me when there's inevitably going to be big emotions. I can guarantee you it's going to be a 5-hour flight and what toddler wants to sit still for 5 hours? Mine has so much energy and there's nowhere to expend that energy. So obviously she's going to get some big emotions. That's normal, but we're not there yet that I can really help in those big emotions and do it, within a minute and stop it in its tracks. We're going to have to, experience those emotions together. And I don't know the timeline of how long that would take. And I'm so scared of that, people watching and judging my parenting. And so you're right. We need to do a better job of not judging other parents when they're in the supermarket trying to grocery shop and be like, no, like you need to get groceries. You need to feed your family. So you don't feel like you have to leave and you shouldn't be embarrassed. We should try to somehow, like there needs to be like, how there's like the secret head nod, like we need a mom one. That we just give this like secret.
Like you hand off the rest of your list and they go and get everything for you. I think it's just parenting is very isolating and we're all expected to do it on our own. There is no village. Yeah. It's not the way it was before. So like when your kid's having a meltdown of whatever, if your kid's even just has a poopy diaper and you have a basket full of groceries that you have to pay for, the mom is always alone. The mom, the dad, the parents, whoever. So this is like a greater issue that we're getting into. We're going to solve the world with this one.
Yeah, I don't know if this will be helpful, for you, Jen, or anyone listening, but I've sort of adopted this mindset for myself of this world is for our children. This world is for my kids. And when we operate in a way of this is a world for adults, this is a world for adult comfort, adult expectations, then we're actually like not serving kids. There's I'm obsessed with this greeting that is used by an indigenous tribe in Africa. The way that members of this tribe greet each other is they'll say, and how are the children? What they say, it translates to, and how are the children? And then the response is, the children are well. And it's a mindset of, if the children are well, right, then everything's good, right? And we make decisions based on our children, right? What a different world it would be if the decisions we were making were around how are the children, or what's good for children. Later this afternoon, we're taking a road trip to see family in Michigan, and I have to get some things from Target, and it's like mom camp summer over here. So I'm like with all my kids all the time, and I'm like, I got to take all 3 of them to Target. And I have a very specific list of things that I need, and we're going to be going all throughout the store, and there's going to be things, and I'm sort of gearing myself up for it, thinking about what I need to communicate to them. And while I'm going to do as much as I can to make this as smooth and as, problem-free as possible, I'm also just going to go into it with a mindset of just like accepting what happens. I get looks in Target sometimes. I had someone on the street the other day, though, say, I was walking my bike with my 2 boys, and they were walking next to me, and someone came up to me and was like, wow, your kids are just so good. They're not running into the street. They're just so good. And I'm like, this is the least helpful compliment ever. I don't care that you think this right now. Like, they're literally just little walking robots down the street. Like, you know nothing about them. You know nothing about us. It's the moment that's good. We are inherently good. And so to your point of, that's not life. That's not feeding me and fueling my parenting. I don't know where I was going with this, but the point being,
but like, fitting your
the
kids
world is
into
for
an
our
adult
kids.
world. Yeah,
exactly.
I think so many people parent of, I need to fit my kids into their world. I need to make them behave so that it doesn't upset them or anything like that. So it's that, it's everyone's world. Yeah. Everyone is welcome to be here. Our kids are just as welcome to be having fun and exploring and experiencing as anyone else. And right, we just need to, again, it's all these mindset shifts. And we got very off topic here.
No, well, you know what, though? I think it brings up too, though, which is, I think, kind of on topic for that, like with toddler tantrums, I'll sometimes speak with folks who might parent differently at home or respond differently at home than they do in public. So there's kind of this disjointed response that the child feels, okay, at home, mom says this or does that, or at home, dad opens his arms up and we hug or whatever it is when I'm having a thing, but maybe in public, am I getting a different response? Is that response coming from a fear response, right? Or anxiety that maybe the parent is feeling? And so as much as we can, maybe slowly, right? Like maybe in baby steps, but like really try to level our response so our child knows that no matter where I am, when these feelings crop up or when I'm having a hard time, I predictably know what my caretaker's response and help is going to look and feel like.
And it's true, because going back to we're worried about what people are going to think about us in public if our children have emotions. Like, why are we so worried about people knowing our kids have emotions? I'm worried sometimes, but kids have emotions. Yeah. It's like, why are we? Well, I know why, but but right. But let's not be. Yeah.
Right.
There's a lot.
I know.
There's a lot.
And and I've never thought to myself ever, when I hear a child crying or see a tantrum happening, there's so much like love and goodwill and empathy that's like coming from my direction. Never would I be like, oh, you better get them. You better tell them,
Yeah.
And
if whack that kid. Yeah.
And if someone is having that thought, like, they're not your people, right?
Yeah. No, they're not your people.
So let them go. Let them do their thing, right?
Let them think it. Yeah. Actually.
On that note, there was a video that I watched from Dr. Becky about tantrums, and she basically says, I think it's a podcast actually that they're filming, but she basically says, if I had to pick, like, I'd pick a kid to actually have tantrums. Like, that means that they're processing and that they're showing these emotions. And so she's like, I actually see it as a good thing if you have a kid that shows big emotions by having tantrums, because they have feelings, they have desires, they have these wants that they really want something so bad that they can't get. And they're like, as adults, we're the same thing. If you really want something and you don't get it, you don't get the promotion you really wanted at work, we act out sometimes, or we go binge drink because we're so upset. They're just having these wants and desires that everyone experiences. So it's actually a good thing. Like, we need to stop seeing it as a bad thing, and we need to start seeing it as they're learning, they're growing, they have these wants and needs, and that's so special. And how can we help nurture it? And I just thought it was a very interesting point of view that I hadn't heard before. But I guess my point is, like, so is it normal to have these tantrums? Is that what's normal and okay? Or is that, I guess saying it's normal is even weird to me. But
yeah,
you know what I'm
it's
saying.
expected for their development.
Right.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's like we tantrum too, right? Like we have responses to our big emotions. We don't call them tantrums when we're adults, but like we have sometimes unhealthy responses to that. And
Yeah.
when I think about as even adults, like what we need, right? So you don't get that promotion at work. I don't know that anyone would say, I mean, maybe some people would say, I don't know, but maybe this is more of a stress response, but like isolation, right? Isn't usually what we need in order to regulate those emotions is community, is the presence of another person, right? A good friend, a partner. Sometimes, you know, even if we don't have access to those things, a walk outside, right? Sitting with a pet, listening to music, journaling, whatever it might be, co-regulation and the need for another person's sort of regulated nervous system, if you will, is helpful. And so that doesn't go away. Yeah. It's especially acute in toddlerhood.
Yeah. And it just comes back to normalizing these big emotions and the responses and how they come out, and that we need to shift our mindset to this world is for our kids. It's not for the comfort of middle-aged white men. It's not for the comfort of your Aunt Karen who is judging your parenting. Although I do have an Auntie Karen and she is wonderful. Yeah. She is not a Karen, just an unfortunate name. Yeah. But yeah, I think that it all just comes back to shifting how we view and like how we view toddlers, or not toddlers, tantrums, how we view emotions, and that it's not a reflection on our parenting. And I think that's like my biggest takeaway from today.
And accepting that isn't permissive, right? Accepting tantrums and understanding them is not my kid can do whatever they want.
Yes.
Right? Or it's a free reign.
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
For sure. It goes back to the boundaries there.
Yeah. I had a professor in grad school say, don't try to have patience. You will run out, but you can always have understanding, right? Like if we can just access our understanding in those moments, then that's oftentimes an easier sort of limb to grasp onto.
Oh,
yeah,
for
I love
sure.
That. I love that.
Like very much connects with me because I'm with a baby at home. Like I'm exhausted and not sleeping, and my patience is paper thin, and I hate it. I don't love that my patience is so thin, but it is what it is. I'm getting up a million times a night and I'm not sleeping. I'm not eating properly, not doing all these things. But it's true. It's that understanding and reminding myself that it's okay, and that, like all the things that we've talked about today, once I can kind of like, okay, and come from a place of understanding, I think that would be easier for me than trying to be like, oh, why am I not patient? Then I get mad at myself for not being patient enough. And I like that.
And understanding for yourself, right?
Yeah.
And offering yourself that understanding, and even telling yourself, it's okay that you're exhausted. It's okay that you don't have patience right now.
This is also a good opportunity for us to reframe our view on taking care of ourselves. Instead of looking at ourselves when we don't have patience, when we're feeling burnt out, when we're having those mom ragey days, instead of being like, oh, why am I such a bad mom? Or why can't I just be different? Instead, reframing, being like, what is it that I actually need? Like, what is my body telling me? Because most of the time when I feel like this, I feel like I need to be doing something more. What I really need is to be doing less and to actually be paying attention to my body. What does my body actually need? What does my heart need? What does what's actually going to fill my cup today? One of the big reframes we've had is asking ourselves, like, how can we be friendly to ourselves today? Because we do think it's important to be friendly to every mom, but the mom that it's the most important to be friendly to is yourself. So Rachel, why don't you tell us, what is a way that you've been friendly to yourself this week? Or what is something you're doing to be more friendly to yourself as a mom?
Yeah, I love this. Before we moved to the suburbs, I was a big Orange Theory like workout person. Like it was like
Love
my
Orange
gym.
Theory.
Yeah, it's so good. And really loved the community there. And since the move and just a shift in life, like I have not been to the gym. I haven't worked out. I haven't done that sort of thing for myself in like about a year. And so this week I started running outside and just kind of doing my own, just kind of like wherever my body sort of led me. Am I going to do some push-ups? Am I going to whatever it is, right? And using that time, I found I really love kind of evening runs. It's just, it's cooler and the sun setting's really beautiful. And so I've really enjoyed that time and I've been protecting it this week. So
that's
awesome. I've been telling my husband,
huge.
like, I'm going to run. I'm going to go for a run. And I think also part of that sort of being kind to myself is being really kind on the expectations of myself, right? If, the distance that I go or how fast I'm running or whatever it might be, like, doesn't matter. And I'm not using that as sort of a source of, this was a good run. This wasn't. So I'm loving it. Thanks for asking that.
Thanks for sharing, and thanks for sharing all of your tips on toddler tantrums, adult tantrums, big emotions. I know I learned a lot. So we could keep talking for hours, but at some point we do need to wrap this up. You just tell people where we can find you.
You can find me at parentingonmars.com or on Instagram at parentingonmars. And I am, getting through mom camp summer, but come fall, I am dropping these new group parent coaching sessions. And so I'm building a wait list, and I would absolutely love anyone who's interested in having more kind of tailored support in community with other parents who are looking to build themselves up the same way from within. It's some really amazing content and amazing work that I have planned. So get in on the wait list.
Sounds good. Yeah. We'll add the link to it in the show notes.
Perfect.
Yeah, and we can share it in our stories when this episode goes live as well. So, thanks for joining us again. This is wonderful.
Yeah, thank you so much, Rachel.
Yeah, it's been nice.
Thanks
Enjoy your mom camp.
Good luck at Target.
Thank you.
You're going to do great.
All right.
Bye.
Okay, bye.